Penguin Random House Audio presents The Future We Choose, Surviving the Climate Crisis by Christiana Figueres and Tom Rivett-Carnac. Read by the authors.
We dedicate this book to Christiana's daughters, Naima and Jihanna.
And Tom's daughter and son, Zoe and Arthur. And to the generations who will inhabit the future we choose. Let us not pray to be sheltered from dangers, but to be fearless when facing them. Rabindranath Tagore.
Author's note. About the authors. We are good friends and fellow travelers on this planet, but we differ in many ways. We were born in two different geological periods. I was born in 1956. At the end of the 12,000-year-long Holocene epoch, when a stable climate allowed humanity to flourish.
And I, in 1977, when the Anthropocene epoch, characterized by humanity's destruction of the very conditions that allowed us to thrive, began.
We come from opposite sides of the geopolitical map. I from Costa Rica, a small developing country that has long been a model of economic growth in harmony with nature.
And I from the UK, the world's fifth largest economy and the birthplace of the Industrial Revolution and its reliance on coal.
I come from a deeply political family, immigrants to Costa Rica on both sides. My father was 3 times president of the country and is considered the father of modern Costa Rica. Not only did he initiate some of the most far-reaching environmental policies in the world, he remains the only head of state ever to have abolished a national army.
I stem from a family steeped in British history and rooted in the private sector. My great-great-grandfather was the chairman of the East India Company when it was the only company in history to have a private army. My earliest memories are of looking for oil with my petroleum geologist father.
I am the mother of 2 adult daughters.
And I am the father of a daughter and a son, both under the age of 10. We could have had nothing in common, but we deeply share that which is most important: concern for the future of our children and yours. In 2013, we decided to work together to forge a better world for all children.
From 2010 to 2016, I was the Executive Secretary of the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, the organization tasked with guiding the response of all governments to climate change. Assuming the highest responsibility for negotiations right after the dramatic debacle of the 2009 Copenhagen Climate Change Conference, I refused to accept that a global agreement was impossible. In 2013, I heard about Tom, who was then President and CEO of the Carbon Disclosure Project and a former Buddhist monk. Intrigued by his unusual combination of experiences, I asked him to join me in New York City to discuss his becoming my senior political advisor. At the end of a walk around Manhattan that took the better part of the day, I turned to Tom and said, "It's clear to me that you have none of the skills necessary for this job, but you have something far more important: the humility to foster collective wisdom and the courage to work within a complexity that is beyond any mapping."
With that, she invited me to join the UN effort to advance the negotiations for the Paris Agreement as her chief political strategist. I designed and led the largely covert Groundswell Initiative. A few years later, the most far-reaching international agreement on climate change ever attempted was finally achieved.
When the green gavel came down at 7:25 p.m. on December 12, 2015, adopting the Paris Agreement, 5,000 delegates who had been holding their breath for hours jumped out of their seats in ecstatic delight, in celebration of the historical breakthrough. 195 nations had just unanimously adopted an agreement to guide their economies for the next 4 decades. A new global pathway had been charted.
But pathways are valuable only if they are used. Humanity has prevaricated for way too long on climate change. We now have to walk that path, or rather, we have to run it. This book maps the route of that run, and we hope you will run alongside us.
Introduction. The Critical Decade. The world is on fire, from the Amazon to California, from Australia to the Siberian Arctic. The hour is late, and the moment of consequence so long delayed is now upon us. Do we watch the world burn, or do we choose to do what is necessary to achieve a different future? Who we understand ourselves to be determines the choice we will make. That choice determines what will become of us. The choice is both simple and complex, but above all, it is urgent. In Washington, D.C., at 10 a.m. on a Friday, a 12-year-old girl marches with her friends, holding up a hand-painted sign of the earth enveloped by red flames. In London, grown-up demonstrators dressed in black, wearing riot police headgear, form a human chain blocking traffic at Piccadilly Circus, as others glue themselves to the pavement in front of the headquarters of BP. In Seoul, South Korea, the streets teem with elementary school children sporting multicolored backpacks and carrying banners that say "Climate Strike" in English for benefit of the media. In Bangkok, hundreds of teenage students take to the streets. With firm resolve and heavy hearts, they walk behind their defiant leader, an 11-year-old girl carrying a sign, "The oceans are rising and so are we." All over the world, millions of young people, inspired by Greta Thunberg, the teenage girl who began a lone protest in front of the Swedish parliament, are engaging in civil disobedience to draw attention to climate change. Students understand the scientific projections and are terrified about the diminished quality of life on their horizon. They demand decisive action now. They're helping to raise the level of outrage about the insufficiency of our efforts to address the crisis, and they have been joined by scientists, parents, and teachers. From the quest for independence in India to the civil rights movement in the United States, civil disobedience has erupted when a reigning injustice became intolerable, as we're now seeing with climate change. Unacceptable generational injustice and a deplorable lack of solidarity with the vulnerable have opened the floodgates of protest. Those who will be most affected have taken to the streets. Their anger is energy that we desperately need. It can propel a wave of defiance against the status quo and catalyze the ingenuity needed to realize new possibilities. These protests should come as no surprise. We have known about the possibility of climate change since at least the 1930s, and have been certain since 1960, when geochemist Charles Keeling measured carbon dioxide in the Earth's atmosphere and detected an annual rise. Since then, we have done little to counter climate change. The result being that greenhouse gas emissions, the cause of climate change, are increasing. We continue to pursue economic growth through the unbridled extraction and burning of fossil fuels, with a fatal impact on our forests, oceans, and rivers, soil, and air. We have failed to manage wisely the very ecosystems that sustain us. We have wreaked havoc on them, unintentionally perhaps, but relentlessly and decisively. Our negligence has catapulted climate change from an existential challenge to the dire crisis it is now, as we rapidly approach limits beyond which Earth as we know it will cease to be. And yet, for many, these depredations are invisible. Despite the increasing frequency and intensity of natural disasters, we still have not connected the dots between the ongoing destruction of our natural habitat and our future ability to ensure our children's safety, feed our...
Sample complete. Ready to continue?